All right, guys. So welcome. You all figured out how to do this. I'm exceptionally proud of you. You're really good people. We're obviously here in our little studio, whatever. I have backgrounds behind me. I have a director here who thinks he's funny while we all know that he's not. So either way, this right here, this video starts the first series of questions that we skipped at the review. Now I say skipped in quotes because obviously in the review we went over the main questions. Then I said, okay, here's a couple extras just to make sure you get the gist of it. And presumably you're watching this video because either A, you just want to, or B, you want to kind of just get a brush up on the material itself. So let's dive into the problem right here. All right, it says, we're going to use this information for the next few questions. Stop and Stare Incorporated has provided the following information. Okay, so for August, September, October, November, here we have their sales as well as their purchases. Okay, this question goes on to tell us that 40% of the sales are expected to be cash sales and the rest are credit. Well, that's important. 40% are cash, the rest, presumably that is the other 60%, right? The rest, or the other 60%, are expected to be credit. Okay? It also tells us we have a schedule by which they collect credit sales and disperse cash. Okay? So, again, we have usually the most common one is 3 months. You can do 2 months, 5 months. It doesn't matter. The same idea still rings true. If it's 2 months, it's the same exact shenanigans. Just walk through it. So here we go. In the current month, they collect 20%. 1 month later, 40%. And 2 months later is 35%. Now, what is the thing that you're kind of going to, or at least you should, catch in this question immediately when you give it a quick glance? For cash disbursements, those should always add up to 100% because it doesn't make any sense that we would tell people in advance we're not going to pay for all our shit. That's lame. However, looking at the cash collections, it's 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 5. So it stands to reason that 5% is uncollectible, right? Because it adds up to 95%. That's interesting. Now that won't become too relevant until a little bit later, all right? But either way, now let's go ahead and let's go through the nuances of all the different things you may have to know for this section, okay? First things first, what are the budgeted cash collections, guys? Cash collections for the month of October, okay? Cash collections for the month of October, all right? Well, let's take a look-see, okay? In October, when we think about cash collections, that always pertains to sales. But the thing is this, what sucks about this question? Yeah, we have some sales that are credit and some that are cash. You all catch that? Right? It said in the question that 40% are expected to be cash. So what I have to do is I have to take this information here and break it up. In other words, this is not going to be useful, is it? Right? I got to say, okay, what's my cash and then what's my credit? Makes sense? I got to break this up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, okay, we can do it for as many months as we wish, but don't forget, cash is going to be 40%. Credit's going to be 60%. All right? So if we look here, really it is asking for October. So if you remember, you go in the month of interest, then back a few. You don't go forward. So if it's okay by you, I'm not going to touch anything from November for now. Or maybe I'll need it later, but for this instant, I don't. Okay? So I'm going to figure out what is 40% of 30,000. Make sense? 40% of 30,000, I believe, is 12,000. Cool? 40% of 30,000 is 12,000, and the rest, the other 16%, is 18,000. Okay. Now I'm going to quickly just write the rest of them. We're going to do it for each month because again, these sales, the $50,000 isn't quite telling the entire truth of the matter. In other words, 40% of that $50,000 or $20,000 was cash, and then the remaining what? Good, 30,000 were credit. And of course, you may catch it in a second. We don't need the cash, but just to just to get the ball rolling and getting it done real fast. October, lastly, it's what? Good. 26,000 is 40% of 65. The other 60% of 65, right, is 39,000. Okay? Good. Now that we got that done, now that we have the delineation laid out, it says once again, what are the cash collections for October, right, guys? Cash collections for October. Well, let's see. All right? What does the schedule tell us? First things first, we get 20% of what goes on in the current month. But even before we bother doing that, you got to say, well, hold on a second, John. Whenever we figure out cash collections, do we always include the cash for that month? And what is the answer? The answer is absolutely. Right? You most certainly get the cash for that month. All right? So $26,000 is going to be there. Okay? So $26,000 is what we're going to be working on. Okay? So in other words, you automatically know that when you find the cash collections, we're going to have $26,000 to start. Okay, we immediately get the cash. There's no debating that. The debate, however, comes in to the other stuff. In other words, it has to do with the credit. So let's take a look. Okay, for the $39,000 that was the credit in October, we know that what? We're only going to get 20% of that up front, right? The cash collection schedule tells us that 20% of the cash collections will occur in the current month. So we're going to add to that 20% of that month's sales, or at least by way of credit, which is $39,000, right? Plus, let's keep on going. Now, here's where you're going to be really crafty, okay? You always go back, not forward. You always go back, and then you actually trace it forward, strangely enough, okay? So looking here, let's see. We're going to go back. Back in September, right, we got $30,000 worth of stuff on credit. Immediately, these people pay the first what? Good, the first 20% of that stuff, right? However, what happened thereafter? Yeah, you got it. Then the next month in October, right, we would collect the next 40% of that number. Makes sense? Next 40% of September's shit. So what we're going to do is we're going to collect the next 40% of September's earnings, or of September's, credit sales, I should say, which is 40% of 30,000. Make sense? Okay. So once again, that's the cash. This is what pertains to October. This is what pertains back to September. And while we're here, we're going to go back to where? Yep. Let's go back to August. Right? The schedule continues to tell us that what? The last 35% from 2 months prior is collected. So what we do is say, okay, back in August, 18 grand was put on credit. We got 20% up front. Then in September, we got the next 40% of that number. Now that it is October, we should stand to reason to get the next what? 35% of that number, okay? So lastly, we're going to do 35% of the 18,000. Make sense? So we have 26,000 plus 20% of 39,000 plus 40% of 30,000 plus 35% of 18,000, okay? Which should be, lo and behold, answer choice A as always. All right, $52,100. So again, don't forget, guys, from the previous exam that cash collections pertain to sales, not purchases, and we use the cash collections schedule. Other stuff will pertain to other information. All right. So again, I hope you guys get that question down pretty well. All right. Cool. Sounds good. We'll move on to the next question in just a second. I'll see you guys then. Be good. Exciting shit.